Neville, and here we are again with Art and Life, hopefully entertaining you and maybe giving you some useful information, or if you already know all about this, you can just say, well, I've got that one. We're trying to work with Japanese black ink and paper, a very fine paper, and it's Sumi-E with an accent. So Sumi-e. I should have actually explained that earlier. This is the second session, and it's a very complicated topic. And I think actually maybe next fall it would be interesting to do an entire series about this and see if we can't get some of you to actually buy brushes and ink and work through some of these problems. So a typical example is this work, and it shows the influence the black brush used on paper to make a very detailed drawing. And this artist's name, I'm going to get my husband, the Chinese scholar, to pronounce his name.
It's Huang Keng Wang.
And his dates are 1269 to 1354 in the Yuan dynasty. So that is a wonderful example of his work, which we could work through perhaps at another time. Now, when we ended the session the last time, I was very frustrated because I was having a terrible time drawing the apple blossoms, crab apple blossoms. So we're going to readjust the camera and hopefully be able to focus on what I did last week. Now, what about, I think we need to move the camera
That's
later.
good.
You really can see it,
Yep.
even though it's at a different angle? Okay. So I was trying to draw this crabapple blossom, very complex, something I know very well, having brought up an apple farm. And this was my result last week. And those of you who watched will remember I was talking and drawing, and I was doing pretty well in here. And then I had too much ink on my brush and made this horrible blotch. So I made a joke out of it, pretended it was a caterpillar and that there was a butterfly and so on. But I wanted to show you that when I'm not talking and not trying to teach, and just thinking about what I'm doing, this is a better example of what can be done with this type of ink. So the trick here was to use just the tip of this beautiful brush that comes to such a fine point and suspend the brush so it barely touches the paper. And the second trick, or skill actually, it's more than a trick, it is a skill, is to look at the item you're drawing leaf by leaf and petal by petal. You look at it, memorize the shape, go down and draw that, go back, memorize the shape and draw it over and over again, starting with things that are front and going to things that are in back. So a lot of the principles for the Sumi-e are very similar to what it takes to do good watercolor, good oil painting. Any realistic painting requires those skills of observation, memory of the shape, and then translating that memory to a flat surface. So I like this very much. I'm going to cut it out, and maybe it'll make a nice little present for somebody for a wedding present. So I think it's a nice drawing. I like it. I liked it enough to sign it, which indicates to me that it's okay. And as I look at it, I wouldn't change anything. Now, what we're going to do next is look at some of my supplies that I've collected over the years. So I have a large box, which is here, all right? And I like to decorate my boxes so that I know what's in it. And as soon as I see this box, I know exactly what's in it. It's my black ink brush painting supplies. And I had a lot of fun. I did a funny fish over here, and a phoenix, and a little scene over here. I used some wonderful paper to cover the box, and that holds my supplies. So let's take a look at some of these supplies. And this, a lot of people have given these things to us as gifts. On our trips to China and Japan and Korea, we've purchased things. So last week, you remember that I used these two heavy metal bars to hold down the paper. These are workhorse instruments. They're designed to just, okay, we've got to hold the paper down so it doesn't bubble up on us. But lots of times these, they're quite heavy bars, can be made into very exotic gift items of artistic value. These are heavy too. This probably weighs 3/4 of a pound, but they're beautifully designed. This one is a phoenix, and this one is a dragon. Let's see if I get the dragon out here. So there's our dragon. Here's his head, his tail coming down here. Dragon and phoenix. And they come in a very elaborate presentation box. This one I'm pretty sure came from Korea. I can tell because the label on the back is written in Korean type, not in Chinese type. However, to make it look very authentic, they use Chinese calligraphy on the outside. So that's that box. Here is another wonderful item. This is another squirt bottle of ink. This is, you know, there's no cheating in art, and if you need a plastic bottle filled with your ready-to-go ink so you don't have to bother to grind it, why not? Let's make life easy, and certainly Asians are as in much of a rush as we are. So this box goes in here. This we purchased in the United States at some shop, but it's very authentic. And you can tell how old it is because it cost $4.25, says the price on the bottom. Okay. We pointed out last week that this is available in almost any art store. It's a little ceramic vase, also made in Japan, and for mixing your ink. So it's a very simple little tool, but works very well. You can buy the paper in many different forms. This is one way. This paper is not for art, it's for writing. And it comes in, and the way you can tell that is because it's folded. If it were for art, it would come in a roll so there are no creases. So this is if you're writing a long letter to your Aunt Susie in Japan, you would be writing down on this type of paper. And it takes the ink very well. I've used this for art purposes, and it's a good quality paper. The paper that doesn't work is one when you put the ink on it, it goes all over everywhere. So there are good, just like in watercolor, there's good paper and bad paper. All right, let's see what's in this container. Oh, by the way, I made these out of a calendar. I always like things that are decorative. So I cut up the calendar and made this to hold my little ceramic palette. And out of that same calendar, made out of cloth and satin, I don't know whether you can tell this is cloth and satin. Sometimes I think, how did I ever have time to do things like this? I can't imagine. I had 2 kids and a full-time job and still managed to do stuff like this. I don't know, whatever. So this is a famous Osaka castle, very well known in Japan. And this one contains, if I can get it out, a very much tourist box of ink. No one was ever really expected to grind this up. This was to put in your house to prove that you have erudition and that you could really do calligraphy. So this would be something you would show off in your study to prove that you were part of the intellectual class, whether you were or not. And I bought these. I remember buying them. They're beautiful. Each one of these is a cake of black soot, beautifully embossed in gold and silver. Are they showing up?
Yes.
Gold and silver, raised, and on the back is a poem, famous poem. And I don't know if that's showing up, but it's embossed on the back along with stamps. So it's a wonderful, beautifully made memento. This is glass, beautiful little box. Just love that. We purchased that on one of our first trips to China. So that goes back in there. Now, this is a very important item, extremely important. This I purchased also in Asia. Can't remember where I purchased this. And the reason for this is that One of the worst things that can happen to your brushes after you finish using them is to store them this way. Why? This is bamboo. Bamboo is a natural substance, and the bristles, remember we said that they were made out of rabbit hair, squirrel hair, natural, because the capillaries soak up the water and the ink. If you store it this way, the water's going to drain down here, and this is going to split and rot. So each well-made brush will have a little toggle on the top, and the reason for that is so that you can hang it on your brush holder to dry. And they're going to dry, it's good to have them dry to a point. Now as these have dried out, they're beginning to do this, but if I put them back in water, they will go back to their point. And this one was one of my better brushes, so I encased it in a piece of stiff paper to try to help retain that good shape. So this is made out of wood, beautifully crafted, no label on the bottom. Can you remember where we bought this, Robert?
I think it was in Korea.
I think it was in Korea too. Probably one of my suitcase. Yeah, one of my best purchases. Now let's look at some more brushes. This is another tourist item, and these brushes are terrible. They just really don't work at all. They're absolutely ghastly brushes, but it's kind of interesting to have that as a little tourist item. Now let's look at some other brushes. Another way to keep your brushes in good order is to wrap them in these bamboo coils. And a lot of Western painters use this for their watercolor brushes. And why? If the air gets in there, it dries out the brushes. The bristles are protected by the bamboo. Very nice, authentic looking. Some of these brushes work quite well. The only way to tell if you've got a good brush is just like with a watercolor brush. You have to put it in water and see whether or not it holds a point, or whether it just goes, I call them like bad toothbrushes, it goes like bad toothbrush brush. Okay, so some of these were better than others. They almost all have wood. These are all wood. None of these are plastic, bamboo, so on and so forth, from a variety of different places. And then you wrap this up, and that takes care of that. There's some more, another set of brushes here. Same thing, good brushes, some better than others, and they get wrapped up. All right, so that takes care of brushes. So let's see what's going on over here. Brushes, all right. I've forgotten, probably tea came in this box. I'm not quite sure what came in it. Zen Garden, I think it was tea, but isn't that a beautiful box? Well, I have to say, packaging, a lot of Asian companies really know how to package things beautifully. I mean, who could throw away that box? Not me. So in here, we have some more interesting items. This is a very popular item, and I couldn't resist. I think Bob bought this for me because inside it says, "Scenes from the early life of Anselm Lewis Neville Rhodey."
Right.
In Bob's handwriting.
That's our,
so
that's our grandson, right?
Yes, I was supposed to record our grandson. Well, I took photographs of him instead. But what's fun about these books is they are accordions. They do, there is a drawing in there. There is one, Robert. There is. I'll show it to everybody in just a minute. Okay, so you put a scene here, 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 back and forth. And there is Anselm Neville Rhodey. Is he showing up?
Yes.
With his mom, Leonora. So I did do one drawing of him. Better of Anselm than is of Laura. Okay. And what do we have here? I think these are more bad brushes. Yes, more bad brushes. Also, who could resist? This is ancient copies of ancient money. A 100 deng coin used in the Han Dynasty in 25 AD. So that's a little tourist item I just couldn't resist. It has nothing to do with anything we're talking about, but irresistible. All right, now I want to get on to the ink grinding stones. And here's another box over here. Okay, we're going to move this box over. And I can't remember this beautiful wooden box or what it had in it, but again, just a fabulous box. And it's filled with supplies. Isn't this a curious brush? Who could resist this brush? I've never used it, but there it is. A whole bunch of little bamboo strips together with wonderful soft hair. Oh my gosh, you could put your makeup on with this. Oh, it's so soft. And this is obviously for doing great, big, huge calligraphy. Whoosh, whoosh. Poban would have done calligraphy with one of these, and maybe someday I'll use it. Now in here, we have a collection of chops. So I think we'll get, a chop is a way of making a mark that goes back millennia, and we have a number of these made. I think these were given to us as anniversary presents. We were with a group in China, and it was our wedding anniversary, and they were at a chop shop, C-H-O-P, S-H-O-P, chop shop, and you go in there and you pick out the head part that you want, and you tell them your name, and they translate it literally into Chinese or Japanese characters, and you come back an hour later and your chops are ready to go. It's very wonderful to go to a chop shop. So this was a wedding present from our fellow travelers. They really did surprise us. We had no idea they were doing it. Very clever. So that was an anniversary present to us. This is another very useful item. I've still got a lot of my red calendar art here. Okay, this is for chopsticks, but I wish I had it yesterday, because when you're painting, sometimes you just want to rest your brush down, and that little cradle is excellent for, that's Japanese, for holding your brush. So that's what that one's about. Okay, here's another curious item. These are made in all kinds of shapes. What is this? This is a water container. You fill it with water. It has 2 holes in it. And when you're working with your ink container over here, which I've put away, you just pour out a drop or 2 of ink and water. And these can be, you can see how like drop, drop, because you don't want to flood your black soot with too much water. And there's no end to the varieties. They can be ducks, rabbits, just endless a number of shapes for these objects. They're ceramic. It's a ceramic, handmade. Well, this is a press made, but the mark on it is hand drawn. Okay, here's chalk ink, red cinnabar ink. This is dried up miserably because I haven't used it for a long time. And this one came with a wonderful dragon on the cover. That's for a small chop, but you may have a bigger chop. Here's another dragon. More, should be ink in there. All right, so that's for a bigger chop. Now what do we got here? Oh, more cinnabar, more chopped ink. Here's another example. This one is wood. This is a commercially printed image on the outside. And we unscrew the top, and this cinnabar ink is excellent condition. In fact, we may do a chop. I may do a chop in just a minute. Okay, what's in here? Oh, this is another wonderful, wonderful ink water. This one in the shape of a duck. There he is. There's the water hole. There's the water hole. You fill it here, and you go pour it out. Okay? With one of those. More chop ink. I think this is more chop ink. Yes. Another dragon. Nope, empty. Okay. What's in here? Oh, this is another chop, I think. Let me just see. Oh, yes, I love this chop. This one says Elizabeth in English letters and in Chinese letters. And I think that's a wonderful, wonderful. This is one of my favorite chops. I often use this on my Asian paintings. Okay, so there's that. Some Chinese pins that we picked up, Peking University, so on and so forth. Tiny little chop thing. They almost all seem to have dragons on them. Let's see what's in here. Another chop. This one says Neville, I believe. All right, last name. Okay. I want to get down to some of these other items. These are ink cakes to be ground up. And they come in, this is, you know, just a cheap one, everyday ink. More ink here. These are all ink cakes. I've forgotten what's in here. What's in here? Oh, more, oh yes. Okay, this is to hold more plastic bottles of ready-to-go ink. And I put that in an English leather cologne box. Another beautiful box. And here is, finally, a really authentic, fabulous piece of black soot cake. This one is from Korea. This is this is professional grade, if you're really serious about it. Now, how do you grind the ink? That's what we're going to try to do next. When I was in Korea with Robert on a conference trip, I was given an amazing present. This is one of the most beautiful things I've ever received from Asian friends. And first of all, it comes in a beautiful, beautiful box. And I'm going to stand up so I can get this out. This wooden box contains a very important work of art in the form of ink grinding stone. They knew I had been doing Asian brush painting. So this was a very important gift. And the top of this incredibly heavy stone, this has got to weigh, oh my gosh, this has got to weigh at least 15 pounds. This is 3 bags of flour, at least. It's a very, very heavy. And this is stone. And this is carved. It was carved by a woman who, unfortunately, whose name I don't know. Here is the dragon's head, his fangs. Here's the pearl. Remember we talked about the flaming pearl of eternal life and so on. Clutched in the claw, 1, 2, 3, 4 talons on the claw. The dragon winds around here in flames, breathing out fire and so on. This stone was made by, as I said, a woman, and she won an award for being, for this particular work of art, for being one of the best of its kind. Now it's wonderful because the dragon acts as a handle. So I can actually get my fingers in here and pull off the top. So there it is. There, you can tell it's Korean from, what is it's Hangul is the type of print. You can always tell Korean trucks around town because the calligraphy is so much easy to understand. Now, what happens here is that you add water down here, and this is really, I mean, this is terrible to use this with a plastic, oh my goodness, a plastic cup. But we'll forgive ourselves for that. And then you take your grindstone here, and you go back and forth to make the ink. So you can imagine how long it's going to take to get the ink to the right consistency. But this is the very authentic ink and a very wonderful grindstone. But you can see why the people are so interested in doing this, you know? Now I would suspect that a master calligrapher would probably have 2 or 3 assistants who would spend hours during the day grinding ink. I don't think Pobon, who was the abbot down in Brooklyn, Queens, fabulous calligrapher, we have some of his work, would spend his time grinding ink. But anyway, this is the authentic way to do it, and I am so pleased to be able to have this very treasured inkstone that is so beautifully made. So that is the most classic, gorgeous thing I own. I do want to demonstrate how to use a chop, and I think to do the chop, I would like to have a chop mark on this drawing, this painting that I did. I like this painting enough that I would be willing to add a chop. So we're going to hold this down. We've lost our devices for holding this down. We can see why that's important. All right, let's get the other one out. I don't want the paper taking off. So I'm going to do the chop upside down. I think the chop, where the chop mark is located is very important. You don't just kind of put it down anywhere. And it works better if there's sort of a spongy surface underneath. So we're going to sort, yes. Oh, so I'm going to put the chop right here. I want to make sure I'm going to use this chop, which has my name Elizabeth on it. And I want to have, I've got to make sure, the E should be over here, right, Robert? I don't want to have it upside down. So, yeah, so it's got to go, we want to make sure my name isn't upside down. Yeah, Elizabeth should go that way, right? Yeah. So I'm going to aim for here. So this chop, cinnabar, is still soft. So you gently, not too much, roll this around in the gooey cinnabar ink. You want to get all sides. All right, it looks pretty good. There's one area that doesn't have the glisten. All right, it's all the whole surface is glisten. You only get one shot. You only get to do this once. So I'm going to not talk. Okay, you put it down and you kind of roll it, rock it, back, forth, back, forth. You don't smear it. You just hope you got it right. Perfect. It's perfect. Can you see it?
Yes.
All right. All right, if you really want to have fun, let's see. Let's do another one. Now, yeah, okay, the N should be, gotta read it, Neville. All right, so I'm going to put this one like right there. You can put them wherever you like. One of the things that was done with chops was every person who owned, and not everyone, but many of the emperors and famous collectors of Asian art would put their chops on the artwork. So if you look at some of the old works of art, you're going to see chops everywhere. And it was the sign that they owned it at some point. All right, I'm going to stop talking. Okay, I think it should go, it should go there, Robert, or there?
Any place,
or there?
any place.
What do you think? I mean, this is a visual question.
That's fine.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, down, rock, and hope. Perfect, and it's going the right direction. Okay, so there it is, Elizabeth, Neville, and the drawing, and what I'll do is I'll cut that out and find a little Asian type frame for it, and I'll make a nice present for somebody. All right, well, thank you for watching Art and Life and Black Brush Painting. We never did get to color, but I think this is a good place to stop, and if we do a whole series next fall on this, we could get into color as well. All right, thanks for watching, and next week we're back to technical stuff. Next week we're going to do how to draw a barn, and we're going to be back to linear perspective. So if you're interested in technical questions for art, the next one is going to be how to paint a barn, and then we're going to end up with doing a drawbridge, a covered bridge, and we'll see what happens after that. Okay, thank you so much for watching, and stay safe.